My name's Eric Smith. I run Vice President of Architecture at USAA, and today I'm going to talk to you about the business value of enterprise architecture. So this was a topic that Bashir talked me into presenting, and after, as many of you that know him know, that it's a little difficult to say no to him. So after I got off the phone, I got to thinking, so what exactly should I talk about? This topic is so broad. It's full of all kinds of opinions. It's full of all kinds of some successes, an awful lot of failures, and lots of theory, lots of tools, lots of different approaches, and you have 25 minutes to do this in, probably a little bit less at this point. So I got to thinking, so what would be the best approach to talking about this, knowing that we're basically using this as a setup for the rest of the day and a half here? So I thought what I would do is share real briefly our experience at USAA with enterprise architecture, and it won't be all positive. Our first run at it was not that good, and I'll go through some details as to where the approach that we took and where we think we may have fallen short, but also give you some hope in where we're seeing enterprise architecture today and how we're leveraging it within USAA. So first, for those of you who don't know who USAA is, we're not always a well-known name brand unless you happen to be associated with the military. We are a full-line financial services firm headquartered in San Antonio, Texas, that was founded in 1922 by a group of military officers that we essentially like to call the first social network. It's a group of officers that struggled with finding anybody to insure them because they were considered very high risk. So they got together, pooled their money, and with those 25 military officers at the Gunther Hotel in San Antonio, it's now grown to, as of this last November, just over 10 million members. We are a full-line financial services firm, 26,000 employees, about 2,700 IT folks, most of which are also in San Antonio. So we cover all things from banking, insurance, investments, basically anything in the financial services realm. So it's great for our members, but we also have a lot of regulators and also a lot of compliance folks that absolutely love to visit us as well, as you can imagine. So anyway, what I'll do is I'll kind of talk about how we started, what our approach has been, and kind of some our lessons learned. So the first thing I thought we'd do is start with the definition of enterprise architecture. I thought, well, so what's the best way to do that? So I looked at some of the books I've got on my desk or on my shelf that have collected dust around enterprise architecture because it's been a while since I looked at it. I looked through several forums around that are focused on enterprise architecture and the theories around that, around the concepts of enterprise architecture. Then I thought, no, I'll do the next best thing, and is I'll go to my network. So sent several LinkedIn messages out, and I said, okay, so what do you guys define as enterprise architecture, and how are you using it today in your organizations? The breadth of responses I got was quite interesting. Most of it had to do with the fact, or had to do with descriptors such as waste of time, a cash sinkhole was one response. And I got a few that, you know, we feel like we're trudging along, but it's really hard to get traction, to get interest across the board. So then thinking back of the topic, and that is, what's the business value of enterprise architecture? I started to struggle a little bit with what the content was going to be because I wasn't getting a lot of positive vibes from my network. So I went to the next best source, the grand poobah of all information, Wikipedia. And I said, okay, so I looked up the enterprise architecture, I just put it in as a search. So the first paragraph up there describes enterprise architecture at a very high level, and that being applying architecture principles and practices to guide organizations through the business, information, process, and technology changes necessary to execute strategy. So that's pretty high level. I was like, okay, I got to find something with a little bit more meat, a little bit more technology-centric, considering the group that I've got to present to. So I probably didn't pick the right reference point, considering I'm so close to Stanford, but we are a member of the MIT Center for Information Systems Research program. So I went to that group and I said, okay, so what's the definition there? And so they define it a little differently, a little bit more refinement, I guess, and that is the organizing logic for business processes and IT infrastructure that talks about that integration between the company's operating model and all the pieces and parts required essentially to get there to deliver the goods and services to customers. I was like, okay, so there's some clarity. So the question I had is, okay, so with this approach and the fact that there's some definition around what enterprise architecture should do for an organization, why the problem? I mean, why the disparity? Why the lack of progress that organizations have made? So in asking how we were doing, again, I got a variety of responses, and I think what it really boiled down to was this. And as I looked a little further in that same Wikipedia article, it noted that there's really no official definition. So you've got different organizations, public organizations, private organizations, that really talk about their own definition of that. So we have a little bit of a problem, an agreement of what that definition is. And that becomes a challenge when we go to all the interested parties that need to participate in any kind of successful enterprise architecture program. And that's not just IT folks, business folks, process folks, strategy teams, all getting together on the same sheet of music. So if you don't really have a good definition, and if you don't really have a good intent in what the outcome is going to be, it's really hard to get those folks all together, all in the same room, to focus on this, because you don't know what you're really trying to accomplish. So I got to thinking, okay, so I'm not setting this up very well. And unlike Dr. Rao, which could establish a college course and basically have his students probably help him with the research, I didn't have the luxury of doing that. And by the way, it's now caused me to think about my entire college education and how much money that I probably paid to help in research. So I got to thinking, so how do we approach this? So at USA, one of the things that we've been doing is several of our groups have gone through, as we've started our 2014, or really been working on our 2014 plan, we've talked about, okay, what's one single word that describes what you're trying to accomplish in your organization? So we all come up with objectives, we document those, we cover those with our teams, but at the end of the day, if we had to sum it up in less than an elevator speech, what is the one thing that we're trying to accomplish? So I thought about that, and I thought, so for enterprise architecture, what is that one word? What is the one word that we would use? I landed on the word clarity. So my initial thought was, well, it's probably vision. But at the end of the day, yeah, there's vision, but it's also the clarity end to end on what is the business process, what is the business strategy? What is the clarity around the capabilities that enable that business strategy? Then there's clearly business processes that support those capabilities and the clarity behind those. And last but not least is that key enabler, and that is the technology behind it. So with that as a theme, I was like, okay, so we'll start and focus on the word clarity and use that as kind of our launch point. So when we started our enterprise architecture journey at USA several years ago, I would tell you we did not have clarity in mind. Where we really started was very early. I guess our enterprise architecture initiatives really started when we were doing some transformation within our business. So we've always provided a full range of products and services for our members, financial services products and services. And one of the things that, as a longtime member, that we struggled with was the fact that we had different silos for those different needs. So banking, investment, property and casualty. So we offered all those services, but they were very siloed and very segmented within our organization. So several years ago, we went on an initiative to really integrate those things, to provide one voice, one face for our members when they called us. So around that same time, we realized that there were some changes we were going to need in processes. There was a lot of transformation within our organization so that we could truly be centralized and provide a really cohesive service for our membership. So lots of change going on. We thought, perfect time to go tackle this problem.